we go. And I will let people in as we go. But what we're going to do, guys, is so welcome, first of all, to everyone who's joining us live on Facebook, whether you're in the live stream or in the Zoom. And thank you for joining us for this session. We've only got Sarah's precious time for about 30 minutes. So without any further ado, I would love to introduce you to her. For those of you who don't know her already, for those of you who are members in the Hub membership, you'll know Sarah. She comes to do mini one-to-one mindset sessions every month. And so you'll know how brilliant she is. Now, Sarah's been working with us for a while, and she's also going to be supporting our participants on our mastermind session. Our 12-month mastermind program, Accelerate Mastermind, starting from March. And we have the wonderful Nicki with us here as well. So let me just add some people in. So I think most of you know Nicki, but I'm going to quickly hand over to Nicki now to say a few words.
Hi, Gwen. Thank you for this. This is a kind of bonus session, isn't it? It's amazing that we've got Sarah with us, who will be supporting our Accelerate Mastermind people this year. We are very excited to be working with you, Sarah. And I can't wait to see some of your work today as well, because I know Gwen's worked with you, but I haven't. Very quickly, at the end of this, please stay after Sarah's gone, because we've got a bit of an exciting announcement about Accelerate the Mastermind, which you want to hear if you have been looking to join it, but weren't quite sure whether it was right for you. So do stick around. We'll be going through that at around 12 o'clock.
Brilliant. So yeah, thank you, Sarah, for joining us. I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself a little bit more, and we can kick off.
Morning. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Nicki. Thanks for your lovely introduction. It's great to be here with you all this morning. So I'm Sarah Brammall. I'm co-founder of a duo called the Coaching Catalysts. And what we do together is we support female professionals and business owners with mindset and well-being so that you can achieve your goals in your business or in your career, but prioritize your mindset and well-being so that you can thrive in all areas. I am a qualified coach. I'm ICF accredited, which means I'm accredited by the International Coach Federation, which is really important for me to say because coaching is still an unregulated industry. So it's really important for you to know that I have professional qualifications and professional accreditation. I trained for the Coaching Academy, which is the world's lead provider of coach training, and I'm also a coach supervisor. So lots of different aspects of the work that I do. But what I really, really love doing is working with women on mindset and on confidence. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is 3 common blocks that I notice coming up in clients, and giving you some strategies and tools so that if you recognize these blocks for yourself, you can use these strategies, you can start to implement so that you can start to manage your mindset. In terms of my background, before I went into coaching, I was a secondary English teacher for 18 years. So I taught English, I taught media studies, I taught drama, and I was really, really confident of what I could do in the classroom. And then I fell in love with coaching, and I knew that I wanted to make a career change, but I found it such a difficult process to make that change. And I don't know if those of you who are made a similar transition have found the same, but I really, really struggled because my identity was with teaching. I knew that I could teach, I knew that I was good at it, and it really, really took a lot of courage and a lot of mindset work for me to make that transition. And I told myself all sorts of stories like, what do you know, Sarah? Like, all you've ever done is been in a classroom with 14-year-olds, like, you know about poetry and you literally don't know anything else. You don't know anything about the real world, you don't know anything about adults, and you definitely don't know anything about running a business. So I've had to do that work myself. So what I'm sharing with you is, yeah, it's stuff that I use with my clients, but it's all this stuff that I've worked on myself and that I continue to work on. Because I don't know if you have heard the phrase, another level, another devil, right? Like every time we go to the right, let's do the next thing, let's take the next step. It takes courage and more mindset blocks come up. So it's always, always a work in progress. The stuff that I'm going to share with you might be stuff that you can start to put into action straight away. but also stuff that you might want to take a note of and take away with you and come back to in the future as well and think, how am I doing with this stuff? What do I need to keep working on? So do please, while I'm talking, feel free to use the chat box. Let me know what's landing for you. Let me know what's resonating with you. And if you've got any questions, I will do my absolute best to respond to anything that you put in the chat as well. So moving on then to our 3 things. The first thing is that negative self-talk. So give me a why in the chat box that if you find yourself, maybe not all of the time, but you find yourself talking to yourself in a way that you wouldn't dream of speaking to anybody else. I do all the time. Sarah, I can't believe you've done it. Sarah, really stupid. Yeah, we do, Nicki, right, don't we? Exactly. So if that's landing for you, give us a yes, okay? So Nicki's saying yes, Gwen's saying yes as well in the chat. It lands for us, it happens for us. Okay, good, Rebecca, thank you. So why does that happen? Now, I'm not saying it never happens to me anymore, but I can spot it now and I know what to do about it, and it's less than it used to be. Thank you for those who are saying yes. Because we've got brains that are predisposed to negativity. When we evolved as human beings, our brains evolved to keep us safe from danger, but not to make us happy. And what happened was we have these brains that's always predicting what might go wrong in the future. So I might go out and I might see that saber-toothed tiger and it might get me. So we're predicting what might go wrong. And we're also ruminating on what went wrong in the past, going over and over and over those conversations, those situations, what went wrong in the past. In addition, we have between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts every single day. It's just mind-blowing to think about that. Most of those are unconscious. Most of those are negative, and most of those are on repeat. And so actually, if we want to have a positive mindset, a resilient mindset, we all have to do the work on cultivating that positive and resilient mindset so that we can move through what's blocking us, so that we can get ourselves out there with our businesses, so that we can take risks, so that we can be resilient. All of those things we have to be able to do as business owners. Now, that negative self-talk for women shows up a lot in people pleasing. We had lots of messages as children, especially as girls, about being good or being perfect or being polite. And for me, as the eldest girl of 3 children, that was very, very much conditioned into me. Boys, on the other hand, receive slightly different messaging, that it's kind of okay to be mischievous, or it's okay to be cheeky, it's okay to be adventurous, it's okay to break the rules. But for girls, we have to be really, really good. And we might carry negative messages that we've received at a young age from parents, from teachers, that impacted our consciousness at a really, really young age. So the kind of messages I was given was, be perfect, be good, don't upset anybody. And the way that that impacts on me as an adult is that I'm always thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be rejected in what I'm saying? All of those blocks come up. So what do we do with this? Well, number one is we start to get curious. We start to notice our self-talk, because so much of it is unconscious. And so much of it, we don't really tune into it. It's really good to take a step back and get curious. Hang on a second, what is it that I'm saying to myself? And if that thing that you're saying to yourself is negative, or it's undermining you, you need to catch it. You need to catch it. And sometimes it really helps to kind of catch it physically and go, stop, because that interrupts that pattern. That stop shocks us out of it. And we can challenge it. We can challenge that thinking. Is this serving me? Okay, so I might be going out the house and forgotten, let's say I've forgotten my phone, and I stop, get halfway down the road, stop, I've forgotten my phone. Oh God, Sarah, you're so stupid. Like, you just forget everything. Now, when I notice myself saying that to myself, I can go, hang on a minute, stop. That's not helpful. What do I want to say to myself instead? And what I might want to say to myself instead is, okay, I forgot my phone. That's okay. I've got plenty of time. I can go back and get it. And I speak to myself in the same way I would speak to anybody else. in the same way that I would speak to a friend. So start to talk to yourself like you are your own best friend. Okay, start to be kind. So again, in the chat box, give me a yes if this is resonating. If you've got any questions about what I'm saying here, feel free to ask them. If this is landing for you, if this is something you're aware of, what's going on for you, what's going on for your self-talk, that's number one. All right. Secondly, I notice the tendency for us to compare ourselves to others. Again, I'm wondering, do you find that? Do you find yourself either consciously or sometimes subconsciously? I can see some of you nodding. Do you compare yourself to other people? Now, again, if you do, that's really, really normal, because again, this comes from evolution. We evolved as human beings to be part of a tribe. We're wired to want to fit in. We've got a lot of societal pressure to do that. You know, if you think about what happens at school, the school uniform, the way in which everybody has to behave in the same way. Even as adults, society is really dependent on us conforming, obeying the law, driving at the speed limit, paying our taxes on time, all of that stuff. And so we are kind of wired to want to be like everybody else. And the problem is that when we go into business, we don't want to be like everybody else. We want to create our own unique identity to encourage people to come and work with us. And so it's difficult because we start to think, oh, but I'm not like Gwen, I'm not like Nicki. It's okay for Gwen, or it's okay for Nicki, because they've been doing this for a while, or they know what they're doing, or it's easy for them because, and it's such a natural story to tell ourselves. And the challenge is that when we start to compare ourselves to others, particularly in a negative way, it creates separation, because we start to focus on not what we have in common, but what the differences are between us. And when we create separation between ourselves and others, it creates a barrier and it makes us feel more disconnected, which is really detrimental to our feeling of well-being. So what do we do instead? Again, the first step is to notice that comparison coming up. What am I comparing myself to? Who am I comparing myself to? And then to get really clear on your own unique value, because each of us has our own unique set of strengths, of skills, of background, of experience. So what is it about you and about your story that makes you unique? And it's so important to own this. I always say it never fails to amaze me, the number of clients that come to me and they go, oh yes, Sarah, I've got 3 children, because I've got 3 children. Oh yes, Sarah, I come from an Irish Catholic heritage, and that's where I come from. Or just sometimes really random things like, oh yeah, Sarah, I went to university in Leeds, and I went to university in Leeds. It's all of those little things in your experience, in your skills, in your background that bring people to you. So start to really own them, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. What matters is that you own yourself as a unique human being. Now, social media is clearly a huge, huge challenge here. It serves us to an extent in the way that we use it to promote and to grow our businesses, but for our mindsets, it can be really, really detrimental, because again, we've evolved to have about 100 to 150 connections in life. Now, if I go onto just my Facebook platform, you know, we're well into like over 1,000, same on LinkedIn, same on Instagram. So there are all of these thousands of connections. So every time I pick up my phone, subconsciously, I'm thinking, oh, there's comparison going on, right, to what other people are doing. And again, even if we're not aware of it, it's there. So with social media, just be really, really mindful, firstly, about who you follow. Is that a positive influence? Secondly, who are the people that you really trust, admire, respect? But don't follow everybody, because it's too overwhelming for our brains. It really affects our ability to stay in our own lane. And thirdly, just watch those excuses, because that's really, really damaging. It's okay for Gwen because It's okay for Nicki because, it's okay for Sarah because X, Y, and Z. We tell ourselves those stories. I know I've done that a lot myself. I thought, wow, she can do it. She's got more time than me because she hasn't got 3 children to look after. Or she can do it. It's okay for her because she's not still trying to do her day job while she's setting up her business. Or it's okay for her because, yeah, you do that as well, Gwen. Exactly. We all do it, but we have to watch those excuses because firstly, that comparison creates separation. And secondly, it gives us a path to not take action. So that's with comparison. And then the third kind of really common mindset block that I see coming up is around playing small. And again, give me a yes in the chat box if you know what I'm talking about here, about making ourselves smaller to be accepted. Yeah, Aisling, thank you. More aware of this. Yeah, and again, yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I see Nicki nodding as well. It's interesting, again, the more you start to notice this, the more that you see of it. We're conditioned to play small. Lots of us, it's really easy to do. We're conditioned, right, to play small. Think about the messaging that we get in society about women and weight and making ourselves physically smaller in order to be accepted. That's really, that's a really powerful message. The criticism that women attract if we're too loud, if we're too outspoken. And we know from the research about the differences between the way that a woman will enter a room, more likely to make ourselves smaller, more likely to keep our belongings to ourselves. We're more likely to cross our legs or to fold our arms or to look down. Whereas men will tend to enter a room and to enter with more dominance, so to spread their belongings out, to take up more space. And even if it's not conscious, again, it's interpreted as dominance. So I'll get to what we need to do about that in a second, but there's definitely a difference there. And as human beings, again, coming back to that idea of evolution in a tribe, as I was talking about a minute ago, we have this really deep-seated fear of rejection. And our 2 deepest fears as human beings is I'm not enough or I won't be loved. 2 most deep-rooted fears. And so when we're conditioned by that fear of rejection, really hard to be visible, it's really hard to make our voices heard. And there's a reason that when the public is surveyed on what's your number 1 fear, nobody goes, my number 1 fear is death. The surveys always come back going, people's number 1 fear is public speaking. Because when we put ourselves out to speak publicly, and even if that's a Facebook Live, we're putting ourselves in a position where we're at risk of ridicule or rejection. And so it takes bravery, it takes courage to do that, to push out of that tendency to play small. And playing small is a protection mechanism, because if I don't really try, don't really go all in, then I can't really fail because I haven't really put it all out there. So we use it to protect ourselves as well. So what we're going to do, what are we going to do about that? Fear will come up every single time we push ourselves out of the comfort zone. But in order to grow, we have to move ourselves out of the comfort zone. There's a brilliant book by Susan Jeffers, which is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's a great book, but even if you don't read the book, just take that phrase, feel that fear and do it anyway. We have to train ourselves to get comfortable with discomfort, because with time, what was once scary or what was once uncomfortable becomes easier. So if I took myself back in time 5 or 6 years, and I think Gwen has known me actually most of that time, I was just probably starting to do Facebook Lives, but God, it took a lot of energy. I had to give myself a time, like a certain time, and I had to post and say, I'm going to show up, and I had to really prepare and have loads of notes. And it would take so much energy because it was scary for me. And I was scared about what people would think of me. Yeah, you remember, Gwen? Yeah. And you as well, Nicki? Yeah, exactly. But now I can show up Friday morning. Yes, Gwen. Yes, Nicki, I'm here. I'm delighted to be here to talk to you guys this morning because I've practiced, I've repeated it again and again and again over time. So what used to be scary is no longer scary for me. Now, of course, there's still stuff that scares me, but every time I challenge myself, let's get out of that comfort zone and trust it gets easier with time. Number 2 here around playing small, practice taking up that space. I do this work quite a lot with clients to practice just walking down the road and making yourself physically bigger and being prepared to make eye contact when you want to make eye contact, or walk into a room and take up the space that you want to take up. Again, it's a case of practicing asking a question in an unfamiliar setting, practicing putting yourself in a position where you're going to be visible. So whether that's by going live or volunteering to do a talk at your local networking or whatever that is, get comfortable being visible. And number 3 with this playing small, which is really, really important, is to get clear on whose opinion matters to you. Because we're all going to face criticism, we're all going to face rejection. But whose opinion are you going to follow? Whose opinion do you care about? And there's a brilliant quote by Theodore Roosevelt called The Man in the Arena. I'll read a little bit for you, and then you can look it up if you want to. But what he said was, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without shortcoming and error, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So it's a brilliant quote. We have this framed in our house. It's a great one to refer to. If you want to do great work, you have to get yourself out of that condition of playing small and feeling like you're small in order to get your voice out there, to make yourself visible. So practice that, get practicing on making yourself bigger. Just briefly, I'm just kind of conscious of time, but just briefly, 2 characters I want to get you to, when it sort of introduce you to or invite you to get to know better if you haven't already. One is that voice of the inner critic, that voice that goes, do you know what, who are you to be doing this thing? Really important with that voice of the inner critic, who can be really cruel, by the way, to not just kind of switch it off or push it down or try and suppress it, but actually go, okay, I hear you. Mine's called Brian. We go, hey, Brian, I hear you again, telling me I'm crazy to be doing this thing. And get your critic out and go, all right, thank you. You're trying to keep me safe, because remember, your brain's always trying to protect you from danger. You're trying to keep me safe, but my life isn't in danger here. It's safe for me to put out a new sales page. It's safe for me to do a Facebook Live. It's safe for me to do this networking talk. It's okay. Yeah, it's scary, but my life isn't in danger. Start to form that relationship with that inner critic. If you can, create a persona, create a character, and start to talk back to it. Because when you try and squash it down and suppress it, it just stays in your subconscious. Subconscious is so powerful. You've got to say to that gremlin, that Brian, whoever that is for you, it's okay, I've got this. Or with that voice, just to imagine you've got a volume dial and just turn that voice down. I know you're there, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to turn that volume down. And the second is to get to know that inner mentor or that inner cheerleader to help you to manage your mindset. So an inner mentor might be like an older version of you. So you, 20 years, 30 years in the future, what are you going to be saying to yourself? Or to create an alter ego for yourself, like another character. So just like Beyonce did when she created Sasha Fierce. And if you look up Beyonce talking about her early work, when she came out with Crazy in Love, she says, you know, it's Sasha on the stage there. It's Sasha who's fearless. It's Sasha who's there because she does the stuff that I can't do. So you can use that as your inner cheerleader, or you can create a kind of an alter ego, another persona for yourself, where you go, okay, I'm going to do this scary thing, but I'm not showing up today as Sarah. I'm going to show up as somebody else who's going to allow me to step into that role. Okay, so I've covered a lot of information in a short space of time. I'm just going to wrap up and just kind of go back over what I said. So number one, we talked about that negative self-talk. Just start to notice it. And when you notice it, start to challenge. Number two, that comparison to others. Get really clear on you, your strengths, your value, and own that. And just watch that, watch who you're comparing yourself to as well, especially on socials. And number three, playing small. Where are you playing small, and where can you challenge yourself to get bigger? Number four is think about that voice of the inner critic. How can you create a character for that so you can start to talk back and manage it? And number five, who's your inner cheerleader? Who's your inner, your alter ego, who you can use to really help cheer you on and help you step up to be the person that you want to be. So I've given you a lot today, and I think we've just kind of scratched the surface of the sorts of tools that you can use in mindset work. Really happy if you've got any questions following this, you can pop them to Gwen and Nicki, and I'll get back to you with those. I can always answer those kind of via the group. Really happy to do that. Anything anybody wants to ask or say before I wrap this session up? Okay. Or let me ask a different question, a better question actually. Given you lots, if you're going to take away just one thing from what I've said, what would that be? Let's stick that in the chat. What's just one thing that you're going to take away from what I've shared with you today? Thanks, Kerry. Okay, so Kerry is going to take away that practice of taking up space. Thank you. Pushing back against that inner critic. Yes, you've got this. Telling your inner critic that you're safe, it's okay. Great. Aisling, challenging that inner critic. Yeah, Rachel, get that alter ego who does the scary stuff. It's really effective. Angela, journaling that inner critic. Exactly. Giving that inner critic a name. Shazia, taking action. Exactly, Shazia, because action breeds confidence. Helen, you're going to start to notice that inner critic. And Claudine, you're going to start to name, and you're going to start to speak to your inner critic and your inner mentor. And Rebecca, you're going to start making yourself bigger, talking to that voice and letting them know it's okay, I am safe. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really helpful to know what's landing. And Sarah's saying, putting an identity to the inner critic so that you can respond. Fabulous. Okay, I think that brings us to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got any questions after this, do, as I said, send them on via Gwen and Nicki. I'm really happy to respond to anything. And thank you, Gwen, and thank you, Nicki, for inviting me to come today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for joining us, and thank you so much for your expertise. Of course, there's only so much you can address in 30 minutes. But yeah, as people in my membership will know, what Sarah manages to achieve one-to-one in just 7 minutes. Who's had the laser coaching with Sarah in the membership here? Anyone? Rebecca, I think you have, haven't you? Yeah. And has that helped you?
It did, yes, very much so.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Really good. Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. Now, in the spirit of transparency and honesty and not listening to my inner critic, we've had, some of you will have noticed we've had some tech issues in starting this session. And bizarrely, Nicki had exactly the same link as me, but one of the links didn't work in our emails. So apologies to those of you who were struggling to get in and joined us late, and there are probably people who didn't manage to see this at all, and you're going to watch on the replay. But yeah, so apologies for that. We yeah, that was not obviously our intention to for that to happen. But what Nicki and I are going to chat to you about something. So we've made some a change or two to Mastermind that we want to kind of open out to more people. So if you're interested in that, stick around. But I know Sarah has to rush off. So massive thank you, Sarah. And as I say, Sarah's going to be supporting us in our Mastermind for our participants and helping them release some of those blocks. So we're really, really excited about that. But we're going to let you go, Sarah, because
All right, wonderful.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so apologies for the tech, as I say, but yeah, Nicki and I just wanted to mention something. So we've had a lot of feedback and responses to what we're doing with the Mastermind. Of course, this is the first time me and Nicki have done this, so we're exploring as we go in terms of people's needs and people's wants. And one of the things that's been flagged up is that we may have frightened a few people off by suggesting that the Mastermind was only for established NTs. Now, there is obviously various definitions of what established means. And if you are likely to be thinking, you know, oh, well, I'm not sure that's me. I don't think I'm really at that stage. We decided that we didn't want you thinking that way. And so we feel that we may have intimidated some of you who are keen and interested and might be disappointed and feeling excluded. So we are changing it slightly to invite you to apply at whatever stage you are on your path. And the key thing for us that's more important is your commitment and motivation. And we really want to support as many people as possible who is right for this journey. And, you know, like I say, we're learning as we go. And so that's the conclusion we've come to. And we want to open the doors to the people who are just a little bit maybe a little bit intimidated, or they perhaps weren't ready, or they're really keen, but they think, well, that's not me. I'm not at that stage. Yeah. So that's where we're at with it, really. So yeah, if I hand over to Nicki for her to say a few words on that as well.
Yeah, totally. We are obviously learning through all of this because it's the first time we've run this, and we, from the feedback, we've decided that, you know, we don't really want to make anyone feel excluded. But the really, really important thing in a mastermind particularly is your commitment, your attitude, your mindset. And it doesn't matter so much that, you know, you've got amazing results so far. Actually, you know, we can actually add masses of value to you if you haven't had amazing results so far, or you're not established in whatever sense or definition you think of that. We want to work with really committed people that have goals and they want to make this work. Those are the people that we want in the group. And so for some of you, that you may not have quite got that message through from our messaging so far, or our marketing so far. So we want to just make sure that everyone knows that. And we'll be sending another email out tonight because we really want to close the doors on Monday, but we don't want anyone to miss out that we really was interested and that we know we can support and that would make a great addition to the group already. So just wanted to get that out there because I think, you know, we all kind of get things wrong a little bit sometimes, and we want to learn from our mistakes. And, you know, we've got some amazing feedback so far from people that, you know, maybe keep saying, well, I'm not sure I'm the right fit, but let us make that decision for you. So just fill the form out and we'll have a chat with you and work out whether you would be a good fit. So so that you're not you have a definite decision either way. So
yeah, and we're open for calls as well, you know, so if you're thinking I just don't know, that's what we're here for. And we're not in the business to, you know, to onboard people who aren't ready or who aren't a good fit or who we don't think, you know, has got that sort of focus. So yeah, we're open for calls just to chat, really. What I might do is type in the comment. Should I type in the chat the brochure link?
yeah, do you know what, I'm going to just put the form link straight in here. So
yeah, put the form link as well.
You can go straight to the form. You can fill out the form and that's done then, isn't it? So
yeah, and it doesn't commit you, the form doesn't.
no obligation whatsoever. It's just for us to see whether, you know, you could be a good fit. And there's not just questions about what you've achieved in there at all. It's all about your mindset and, you know, what you're hoping to achieve from the group and what you can bring to the group as well. So there'll be a lot of people who, you know, have amazing experiences in the past that will bring that level of life experience to the group. So it doesn't have to be that you've been in nutrition for 10 years at all. So, you know, we're looking for people with lots of rounded experience too, and the right attitude. So there's the link, go fill it out. We've had, actually, I noticed yesterday there were loads of people that filled out that went and started the form, but kind of maybe got put off by the questions. Don't be put off by the questions. There's no obligation to pay or join at this stage. It's just to start the conversation. That's it.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us again. Apologies for the tech. Still completely baffled why the same link would work on one email and not on another. Who knows? If anyone can help me with that, that would be marvelous. Sarah, you can help me with that. Okay, so Rebecca says, good luck with the mastermind. Have a great weekend. Yes, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And just, you know, quieten down your inner critic this weekend and go and have some fun. That would be my advice to you. So thank you for joining us, folks.
Take
See
care.
you guys. Bye for now.